The doorbell rang once, then twice. Michael Williams glanced up from the small kitchen table where he and his 8-year-old daughter Emma were eating breakfast, simple toast and eggs, all he could manage on a Thursday morning before his shift. Emma's eyes widened with curiosity, her spoon suspended mid-air. They never had visitors, especially not at 7 in the morning. "Daddy, who's that?" Emma whispered, as if the person at the door might hear. Michael wiped his mouth with a napkin and pushed back his chair. "Probably just a package delivery, sweetheart. Eat your breakfast." The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. Michael ran a hand through his disheveled hair and straightened his faded work shirt. Their modest apartment wasn't in the kind of neighborhood where people made social calls, especially not at this hour. When he opened the door, Michael froze. Standing on his worn welcome mat was a tall man in an immaculate charcoal suit that probably cost more than 3 months of Michael's rent. The man's silver-gray hair was perfectly trimmed, and behind him idled a gleaming black town car with tinted windows. A driver stood at attention beside it. "Mr. Williams? Michael Williams?" The man's voice carried authority without raising its volume. Michael nodded slowly, acutely aware of his threadbare t-shirt and the coffee stain on his work pants. "Yes, that's me." The man extended a manicured hand. "Robert Harrington. I believe you helped my grandson yesterday at Westfield Mall." Michael's mind raced back to the previous afternoon, the lost little boy crying near the food court, clutching a small toy robot, the mall security that seemed too busy, the 20 minutes Michael spent comforting the child and helping him find his mother. It had made him late for his second job, but he couldn't just walk away from a frightened child. Yes, I helped a boy find his mom. I didn't realize." "May I come in?" Mr. Harrington asked, though it sounded more like a statement than a question. Before Michael could answer, Emma appeared at his side, curiosity overwhelming her shyness. She looked up at the stranger with wide eyes, then at the expensive car behind him. "Daddy, is he a movie star?" she whispered, not quite softly enough. A smile cracked Mr. Harrington's serious expression. "Not quite, young lady, but I am someone who believes in repaying kindness." Michael hesitated, then stepped aside. Their apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms with a combined kitchen and living area. The furniture was mismatched, some pieces picked up from thrift stores, others left by the previous tenant. The walls needed a fresh coat of paint, and the carpet was worn thin in places where they walked the most. "I apologize for the mess," Michael said automatically, gathering Emma's school drawings from the sofa. "We weren't expecting company." "No apologies necessary," Mr. Harrington said, though his eyes took in everything. He remained standing, declining Michael's nervous offer to sit. "I'll be brief, Mr. Williams. My daughter told me what happened yesterday. How you found my grandson crying, how you sat with him for nearly half an hour, bought him an ice cream, and helped locate my daughter when security seemed uninterested." Michael shrugged uncomfortably. "Anyone would have done the same, but they didn't. You did." Mr. Harrington's gaze was penetrating. "My grandson Jacob has autism. Crowds overwhelm him easily, and he got separated from his mother when the mall became too much. He told us you were kind, that you didn't rush him or make him feel worse. You showed patience few strangers would." Emma tugged at Michael's shirt. "Daddy helps everyone," she said with pride. Mr. Harrington smiled at Emma, then turned back to Michael. "My family owns Harrington Enterprises." "I'm told you work 2 jobs, Mr. Williams?" Michael felt heat rise to his face. Was this pity? He'd had enough of that after Sarah died 3 years ago. "I manage. We do fine." a janitor at West Side Office Park during the day, and night security at Peterson Manufacturing on weekends. And you're raising your daughter alone since your wife passed away." Michael stiffened. "How do you know all that?" "I make it my business to know who interacts with my family," Mr. Harrington said simply, "especially those who show kindness to them." From his pocket, he withdrew a business card and handed it to Michael. It was heavy, cream-colored, with embossed lettering in dark blue. "I have a proposition for you, Mr. Williams. My company needs someone with integrity in our facilities management division. The starting salary is 3 times what you're making now, with full benefits and a college fund contribution for your daughter." Michael stared at the card, certain he had misheard. "I don't understand. You don't know me." "I know enough," Mr. Harrington said. "You showed character yesterday, not for reward or recognition, but because it was right. That's increasingly rare, Mr. Williams." Emma was watching the exchange with wide eyes, not fully understanding, but sensing something important was happening. "I don't know what to say," Michael stammered. "Say you'll come to my office tomorrow at 9. We'll discuss details." Mr. Harrington glanced around the small apartment once more, his eyes lingering on the photographs on the wall. Michael and Sarah on their wedding day, Emma as a baby in her mother's arms, the 3 of them at the beach, laughing. Something in the billionaire's expression softened. "One more thing, Mr. Williams. My wife died 20 years ago. Cancer. I know something about raising a child alone." The words hung in the air between them, an unexpected bridge. "Tomorrow at 9. Michael repeated, finding his voice. Mr. Harrington nodded and moved toward the door. He paused, looking at Emma. "Your father is a good man, young lady. Remember that." After he left, Michael stood motionless, the business card still in his hand. Emma tugged at his shirt again. "Daddy, what happened?" Michael knelt down to her level, his mind still processing. "I think," he said slowly, "our life might be about to change." But to understand how Michael and Emma reached this moment, we need to go back to where it all began. 3 years earlier, Michael's world had collapsed in a hospital waiting room. The doctor's words, "I'm sorry, we did everything we could," had turned him into a widower at 32. And Emma into a motherless child at 5. Sarah's battle with an aggressive form of leukemia had been brief and brutal, leaving Michael with grief, medical bills, and a daughter who asked for her mommy every night. They had once been comfortable, with Sarah's job as an elementary school teacher complementing Michael's work as a maintenance supervisor. They had owned a small house in a decent neighborhood, had been saving for Emma's education, had planned for more children. After Sarah's death, the medical bills consumed their savings. Michael had to sell their house, move to the apartment, and take a second job just to stay afloat. Every morning for 3 years, he had risen before dawn, made Emma's lunch, dropped her at before-school care, worked his janitorial job, picked her up, made dinner, helped with homework, put her to bed, and then, 3 nights a week, headed to his second job while a neighbor checked in on his sleeping daughter. On weekends, he worked night security. Emma spent many Saturdays with Sarah's sister, Michael's only reliable support. His world had narrowed to survival and Emma's well-being. Friends had drifted away. Invitations had stopped. There was no time for dating. Little time for anything beyond work and parenting. Some days, the only adult conversation he had was with the cashier at the grocery store or the other janitors on his shift. Tell us in the comments if you've ever had to sacrifice everything for someone you love. The previous day had been no different from any other, until it wasn't. Michael had taken Emma to the mall, a rare treat to buy her new shoes for school. His daughter had outgrown her old ones, and though money was tight, children's feet wait for no budget. They were heading for the exit when Michael noticed the boy, small, maybe 6 or 7, with dark hair and glasses too large for his face. He was standing perfectly still amid the rush of shoppers, tears streaming down his cheeks, clutching a toy robot as if it might save him. People streamed past, some glancing at the child, none stopping. "Emma, wait," Michael said, halting their progress toward the door. Emma followed his gaze. "Daddy, that boy is crying." Michael checked his watch. If they didn't leave soon, he'd be late for his evening shift. A missed punch-in could mean a smaller paycheck, but the boy's distress pulled at him with a force he couldn't ignore. "Let's go see if he's okay," Michael said, already moving toward the child. The boy didn't look up as they approached. Up close, Michael could see he was trembling slightly, his breathing quick and shallow. "Hey there," Michael said, crouching down to the boy's eye level. "Are you lost?" The boy didn't answer, didn't even look at Michael. Instead, he clutched his robot tighter and rocked slightly on his heels. Emma, with a child's intuition, spoke softly. "I like your robot. My daddy fixes things too, just like robots do." This earned a flicker of attention. The boy's eyes darted to Emma, then back to the floor. "What's your name?" Michael tried again. "I'm Michael, and this is my daughter Emma." "Jacob," the boy whispered so softly Michael almost missed it. "Jacob, that's a great name," Michael said. "Are you here with your mom or dad?" "Mom," Jacob said, his voice still barely audible. "She was, and then people, too many people." Michael understood. The mall was crowded, overwhelming, even for him sometimes. "It's okay, Jacob. We'll help you find your mom. She must be looking for you." The mall's security desk was visible across the food court, but when Michael approached with Jacob and Emma, the two officers were dealing with a heated argument between a teenager and a store manager about alleged shoplifting. They barely glanced at Michael. "We have a lost child," Michael said. "Fill out the form," one officer said, pushing a clipboard toward him without looking away from the dispute. Michael looked at the lengthy form, then at Jacob, who had begun rocking more intensely at the noise of the argument. "This child is frightened," Michael said more firmly. "He needs help now." The officer spared him an irritated glance. "Sir, we're dealing with a situation. Take a seat, fill out the form, we'll get to it." Michael felt a flash of anger but controlled it. Getting thrown out wouldn't help Jacob. He led the children away from the desk. "Daddy, what are we going to do?" Emma asked. Michael considered their options. "We'll find his mom ourselves." He turned to Jacob. "Can you tell me what your mom looks like? What was she wearing today?" Jacob didn't answer, his distress visibly mounting. "That's okay," Michael said quickly. "How about we sit down for a minute? Would that be better?" Jacob gave a tiny nod. Michael found a relatively quiet corner of the food court and sat with the children. Emma, showing remarkable sensitivity, began telling Jacob about her school project on space, distracting him while Michael thought. "Jacob, would you like some ice cream?" Michael asked after a moment. "We can sit here and have ice cream while we wait for your mom to find us." The boy's rocking slowed slightly. "Vanilla," he whispered. "No sprinkles." "Vanilla, no sprinkles. You got it," Michael said, relieved to have found something to ease the child's anxiety. He bought 3 ice cream cones, wincing internally at the expense, but knowing it was worth it. As they ate, Michael asked casual questions, gathering bits of information. Jacob's mother had been wearing a blue shirt. They had come to buy new headphones because Jacob's had broken. They had been at the electronics store when the crowds became too much and Jacob had run. Michael texted his supervisor that he'd be late, then made a decision. "Jacob, would you like to walk with us to the electronics store? Your mom might be looking for you there." Jacob considered this, then nodded. They walked slowly, Michael letting Jacob set the pace. Emma chatted softly about nothing in particular. A gentle stream of words that seemed to soothe the boy. At the electronics store, there was no sign of a distressed mother in a blue shirt. "Let's try the mall information desk," Michael suggested. "They might have better systems than security." The information desk was staffed by a young woman who immediately recognized the situation's urgency. She took Jacob's description of his mother and made a mall-wide announcement. "Jacob! Jacob!" The cry came less than 2 minutes later as a woman in a blue blouse ran toward them, her face streaked with tears. "Oh my God, Jacob!" She dropped to her knees, arms outstretched, but didn't grab the boy. Instead, she waited until Jacob moved toward her, then embraced him gently. "I was so scared," she whispered, holding him close. "Ice cream," Jacob said, pointing to Michael and Emma. "They got me vanilla, no sprinkles." The woman looked up at Michael, gratitude flooding her features. "You stayed with him? You helped him?" Michael shrugged. "Anyone would have." "No," she said firmly. "They wouldn't. Trust me. I know." She stood, keeping one hand on Jacob's shoulder. "I'm Melissa Harrington. Thank you for helping my son." "Michael Williams," he replied. "And this is my daughter, Emma." "He was scared, but we talked about robots and space," Emma offered. Melissa smiled at Emma, then turned back to Michael. "Jacob has autism. He gets overwhelmed easily. When the store got crowded, he bolted before I could stop him." Her voice cracked slightly. "The mall is huge. He could have gone anywhere, been approached by anyone. You have no idea what could have—" She stopped, composing herself. "But he wasn't," Michael said gently. "He's safe now." Melissa nodded, then reached into her purse. "Please, let me give you something for your trouble." Michael held up a hand. "No, really, we're just glad Jacob is okay." "At least let me reimburse you for the ice cream." "It was $3, Michael said with a small smile. "We can manage." Melissa studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Williams, truly." Michael checked his watch again and winced. "We should go, Emma. I'm already late for work." They said goodbye to Jacob and his mother, and as they walked away, Emma slipped her hand into Michael's. "You're going to be in trouble at work, aren't you, Daddy?" Michael squeezed her hand. "Maybe a little, but we did the right thing, and that matters more." His supervisor had indeed been upset, documenting Michael's tardiness with a formal warning. One more late arrival would mean a day's suspension without pay, a financial hit Michael couldn't afford. But as he mopped floors that night, exhaustion seeping into his bones, he didn't regret his decision. Some things were more important than punching a time clock. He never expected to see the Harringtons again. Certainly never expected to find Robert Harrington, whose name Michael recognized from business news, though they traveled in such different worlds that the connection hadn't registered yesterday, standing at his door the next morning. Would you have stopped to help a child like Jacob, even if it meant risking your job? Share your thoughts in the comments. Now, sitting in Robert Harrington's expansive office at Harrington Tower, Michael felt profoundly out of place. The chair beneath him probably cost more than his monthly rent. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawled below like a toy landscape. Emma was in the adjoining room with Melissa and Jacob, the children already forming an unlikely friendship. "Your resume is impressive, Mr. Williams," Robert said, studying the document Michael had hastily updated the night before. "Engineering degree from State University, 5 years as maintenance supervisor at Glenwood Properties before your position was eliminated." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "That was before my wife got sick. Things have been different since then." "Understandably so," Robert said, setting down the resume. "Loss changes everything." Something in the older man's tone made Michael look up. Despite the tailored suit and imposing office, there was a flicker of shared understanding in Robert's eyes. "When my wife died," Robert continued, "I buried myself in work, built this company into what it is today, but I missed much of my daughter's childhood in the process. He glanced toward the adjoining room where Melissa was showing Emma and Jacob something on a tablet. That's a regret money can't fix. Michael nodded, unsure how to respond to this unexpected vulnerability from a man worth billions. The position I'm offering is real, Mr. Williams. Our facilities director is retiring, and we need someone who understands both the technical aspects and the human element of managing buildings where thousands of people work. Your engineering background, combined with your practical experience, makes you qualified. Your character makes you right for the role. I appreciate the opportunity, Michael said carefully, but I want to be clear, I don't want charity. Robert's expression hardened slightly. I don't offer charity, Mr. Williams. I make sound business decisions. Harrington Enterprises employs over 15,000 people. Our buildings and facilities represent billions in assets. I need someone who will treat those assets and the people who use them with care and integrity. Your work history before your wife's illness shows competence. Your actions yesterday show character. This isn't charity, it's recruitment. Put that way, Michael could accept it. Still, the salary Robert had mentioned, triple his current combined income plus benefits, seemed impossible. When would you want me to start? Michael asked. Monday, Robert said. We'll arrange for you to shadow Richard, our current director, for 2 weeks before he retires. You'll need to give notice at your current positions, of course. Michael thought about his supervisor's face when he handed in his resignation. After years of thankless work, after the formal warning just yesterday, to walk away for something better. There was a satisfaction in that he couldn't deny. I can start Monday, he confirmed. Robert extended his hand across the desk. As they shook, he added, There's a company apartment available in our Riverside complex. 3 bedrooms, walking distance to an excellent school. It's part of the compensation package if you're interested. Michael thought of their current apartment, the leaky faucet management wouldn't fix, the neighbor's music that kept Emma awake, the 20-minute walk to the bus stop in all weather. I'd need to see it first. Of course, Melissa can take you there after we finish here. As if on cue, the door to the adjoining room opened and Emma bounded in, her eyes bright with excitement. Daddy, Jacob has the coolest robot ever. It can talk and everything. She noticed the serious expressions on the men's faces and slowed her approach. Sorry, did I interrupt important grown-up stuff? Michael smiled, holding out his arm to her. No, sweetheart, we were just finishing up. Mr. Harrington has offered me a new job. Emma's eyes widened. A better job? One where you don't have to work at night, too? Just one job, Michael confirmed, with better pay and normal hours. Emma threw her arms around Michael's neck, nearly knocking him backward in the expensive chair. Does that mean we can go to the movies sometimes, and you can come to my school plays? Michael felt his throat tighten. He hadn't realized how much his absence had affected her, how she had normalized a father who was always working or exhausted. Yes, Emma, all of that. Over Emma's shoulder, he saw Robert watching them, something wistful in his expression. Melissa stood in the doorway, Jacob slightly behind her, holding on to her hand. There's one more thing, Robert said, reaching into his desk drawer. He withdrew an envelope and slid it across the desk. This is separate from the job offer. Michael released Emma and picked up the envelope cautiously. Inside was a check with his name on it. The amount made his breath catch. What is this for? He asked, his voice unsteady. Consider it a signing bonus, or back pay for years of underemployment. Use it to clear any remaining medical bills from your wife's illness, or for your daughter's future education, whatever you need most. Michael stared at the check, emotions warring within him. Pride told him to refuse it. Pragmatism reminded him of the debt that had been suffocating him for 3 years. "I don't know if I can accept this," he said finally. "Dad," Melissa spoke from the doorway, her voice gentle but firm. "We've talked about this. It's not pity. It's human decency. Yesterday, you showed it to Jacob. Today, we're showing it to Mr. Williams." Robert's expression softened as he looked at his daughter. "Melissa reminds me daily that our wealth comes with responsibility," he explained to Michael. "Yesterday, you didn't see a strange child with behavioral issues. You saw a human being in distress. That perspective is valuable to our company and to our family." Jacob stepped forward slightly, still holding his mother's hand. "Thank you for the ice cream," he said in his quiet voice, "and for not being too loud." That simple statement from a child who struggled with social interaction broke through Michael's resistance. He folded the check and tucked it into his pocket. "You're welcome, Jacob. Thank you for introducing Emma to your robot." The moment was interrupted by Robert's assistant announcing his next appointment. As they prepared to leave, Robert placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "One more thing, Mr. Williams. Next month, Harrington Enterprises is hosting its annual charity gala for children's medical research. In light of your personal history, I thought you might have an interest. Consider yourself and Emma invited." Michael nodded, imagining himself in a room full of wealthy donors, business leaders, and socialites. Just yesterday, the idea would have been laughable. Today, it felt like one more step into a new reality. As they left the tower, Melissa offered to show them the apartment. It was everything Robert had described. Spacious, modern, with large windows and a small balcony. Emma ran from room to room, exclaiming over the built-in bookshelves and the park visible from what would be her bedroom window. "It's too much," Michael said quietly to Melissa while Emma explored. "It's standard executive housing," Melissa replied. "Everyone at your level gets this option. It's not special treatment." Michael looked around at the gleaming countertops, the hardwood floors, the space that seemed endless after years in their cramped apartment. "It feels like a dream." "Sometimes good things happen, Mr. Williams. Sometimes kindness is rewarded." Melissa's gaze followed Jacob, who was showing Emma how his robot worked. "Sometimes the world makes sense." Later that evening, back in their old apartment, Michael sat on the edge of Emma's bed as he tucked her in. Her eyes were heavy with sleep, but her mind was still racing with the day's events. "Daddy," she murmured, "are we really going to move to that nice place?" "I think so, sweetheart." "And you'll have just one job, not 3? Michael smoothed her hair back from her forehead. "Just one." Emma was quiet for a moment, then asked the question that had clearly been weighing on her. "Do you think Mommy knows about all the good things happening to us?" Michael felt the familiar ache that accompanied any mention of Sarah. "I think she does," he said softly. "I think she's very proud of you." "And of you," Emma insisted. "She always said you were the best daddy ever." Michael leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Get some sleep. We have a busy weekend ahead, packing for our new home." As Emma drifted off, Michael sat in the living room, the events of the past 2 days washing over him. From the brink of losing one of his jobs to being offered a position that would transform their lives. From struggling to stay afloat to having the means to clear his debts and secure Emma's future. All because he had stopped to help a frightened child. He thought of Robert Harrington, a man who had channeled his grief into building an empire but regretted the cost to his relationship with his daughter. He thought of Melissa, using her family's wealth and influence to ensure others weren't left behind. And he thought of Sarah, who had always believed in his potential even when he doubted himself. The path ahead would not be without challenges. There would be adjustments, expectations to meet, a new world to navigate. But for the first time in 3 years, Michael felt something like hope unfurling in his chest, fragile but persistent, like a seedling reaching for the sun. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. 3 weeks later, Michael stood at the edge of the Harrington Enterprises charity gala, a glass of champagne untouched in his hand. The ballroom glittered with wealth and privilege. Women in designer gowns, men in bespoke suits, conversations about vacation homes and private schools. Despite his new position and the tailored suit Robert had insisted on providing for the occasion, Michael felt like an imposter. Emma, however, had no such reservations. Dressed in a new blue dress, her hair styled by a professional for the first time in her life, she moved through the crowd with Jacob, both children wide-eyed at the extravagance surrounding them. Melissa kept a watchful eye on them, occasionally steering them toward the elaborate dessert table when the crowds became too much for Jacob. Overwhelming, isn't it? Robert appeared at Michael's side, his own champagne glass empty. I've attended hundreds of these events, and they never feel natural. Michael smiled slightly. That's reassuring, coming from you. The secret, Robert confided, is to remember that beneath the jewelry and the Swiss watches, everyone here is just human. Some better than others, but all fundamentally the same. A string quartet began playing, and the crowd shifted, creating momentary space around them. Robert's expression grew more serious. I have a confession, Michael. When Melissa told me about you, I did more than a background check. I looked into your wife's medical history. Michael tensed. That's private. It is, Robert acknowledged, and I apologize for the intrusion. But it led me to learn that the experimental treatment that might have saved her life was denied by your insurance. The memories rushed back, the desperate appeals, the cold rejections, watching Sarah grow weaker while bureaucracy ground on. They called it investigational, Michael said, his voice tight. Said there wasn't enough evidence it would work. Robert nodded. Harrington Pharmaceutical, a subsidiary of our company, has been developing similar treatments. The research is promising. Too late for Sarah, I know, but perhaps not for others. Michael looked at him sharply. What are you saying? Tonight's gala is raising funds for our new foundation. We're establishing a program to provide access to experimental treatments for patients who have exhausted standard options. No insurance barriers, no financial qualifications, just medical need. Michael felt the glass nearly slip from his fingers. And you want me involved somehow? If you're willing, Robert said. Your experience, both professional and personal, would be valuable to the Foundation's board. It needs voices like yours to balance those like mine. Before Michael could respond, there was a commotion near the stage. The orchestra had paused, and a small figure was visible behind the grand piano that had been set up for later entertainment. Jacob. The boy had somehow slipped away from Melissa and made his way to the piano. Several guests were watching with barely concealed amusement as he clambered onto the bench. Melissa was moving through the crowd, trying to reach him, concern evident on her face. Jacob placed his fingers on the keys, and the room fell silent, anticipating embarrassment. What happened next stopped every conversation, every movement, every breath. Music filled the ballroom. Not random notes or childish plinking, but Mozart, played with precision and feeling that belied Jacob's age and condition. His small body swayed slightly as he played, his eyes closed, lost in the composition. Melissa halted her approach, her hand covering her mouth. Robert stood motionless beside Michael, his expression one of wonder and confusion. When Jacob finished, the silence held for a heartbeat, then two, before the room erupted in applause. The boy looked up, startled by the noise, his eyes seeking his mother's in the crowd. Melissa reached him then, kneeling beside the piano bench. Jacob, she whispered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "When did you learn to play like that?" "I watched videos," Jacob said simply. "I wanted to try." Robert moved toward his daughter and grandson, his face transformed by a pride that had nothing to do with wealth or status. Michael followed, drawn by the moment's pure magic. As the crowd pressed closer, offering congratulations and questions, Jacob began to show signs of distress. The noise, the attention, the breaking of his routine, it was too much. He looked to his mother, panic rising in his eyes. Michael recognized the signs from the mall. Without thinking, he stepped forward, creating a buffer between Jacob and the crowd. "Let's give him some space," he said firmly but kindly. "Too much at once can be overwhelming." The guests, many of whom knew Robert Harrington well enough to recognize his new facilities director, respectfully backed away. Melissa shot Michael a grateful look as she helped Jacob from the bench. "I think it's time we find a quiet corner," she said to her son. "You did beautifully, Jacob. I'm so proud of you." As they moved away, Robert lingered, watching them go. "Did you know," he asked Michael, "about Jacob's ability?" Michael shook his head. "Some people have gifts we never see because we're too busy looking at what they can't do." Robert considered this, then nodded slowly. "You'll join the foundation board then?" "I will," Michael said, "for Sarah and for others like her." Across the room, Emma had found Jacob and Melissa in their quiet corner. She was sitting beside Jacob, showing him something on a phone screen, likely videos of other pianists, knowing Emma's intuitive way of connecting. Michael watched his daughter, confident, compassionate, resilient despite her losses, and felt a surge of pride that matched what he'd seen on Robert's face. They had survived the darkest days. They would do more than survive what came next. The path that had led him here had begun with the worst moment of his life, Sarah's death, and had wound through years of struggle and sacrifice. Then one small act of kindness, stopping to help a frightened child, had opened doors he never imagined existed. Life would never be perfect. Sarah's absence would always leave a space nothing could fill. But standing in that glittering ballroom, watching his daughter build bridges between worlds, Michael understood something profound. Sometimes the greatest acts of love are the smallest ones. Sometimes changing one life changes everything. And sometimes, when you least expect it, the universe finds a way to balance its accounts. Subscribe for more powerful stories like this, and click on the video on the screen to watch the next one with a twist so powerful you'll never forget it.